calling from an 845 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 845.
Hello. Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. This is Mark Labard from Buffalo, New York.
Mark from Buffalo, what's on your mind?
Hi. I just wanted to talk a little. Oh man, I mean, every time I call, there's like a bunch of things I want to talk about. But are you interested in my story about how I almost got into Jordan Peterson?
Sure.
Are you almost
that wording confused me for a second. I was like
a Being John Malkovich situation.
I did not have a physical encounter with Jordan Peterson, but I did have this point later in my college career where I was kind of more moderate leaning, and I was like not 100% sure where I fell politically. I grew up in a liberal household, and my dad was very into politics, and I agreed with pretty much everything he said. But like, I guess in college I was just like, I don't know. I guess I was just kind of frustrated with like how dismissive people were of the right, and I didn't really understand why at the time. So Jordan Peterson was kind of this like figure that kind of framed himself as like this intellectual that didn't take sides politically, you know, and was just fighting for free speech, which at the time I thought was a very, very important. The way that he phrased Bill C-16, I thought like was a slippery slope and dangerous at the time, and now I realize that like C-16 is just like expanding hate speech laws that already existed to trans people, and it's like a very innocuous bill. But
well, I think that there were a lot of people that were, and I know some people in my life who like now, you know, who have good politics, or decent politics, who didn't see a problem with Jordan Peterson like 2 years ago. I mean, they just thought it was self-help stuff. I think that that's how reactionary right-wingers dig their nails into you. It's a funnel system. Like someone like Steven Crowder or the Daily Wire, when they admit what their strategy is that they put their more extreme stuff behind a paywall, and that's they're admitting that that's a funnel system, but that's a bit more explicit. There are a lot of other right-wing influencers. I mean, we just highlighted this on ESVN, but there's a sports figure named Emmanuel Ocho, who I think is like the next version of that. He's quite innocuous seeming, but I could see him getting snagged by the Daily Wire for reactionary right-wing content. That's how it all starts.
Yeah.
So don't feel too bad about that. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Hold on. Brandon wants to weigh in. Mark, just.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think, all of these IDW types have, and it's just conservative intelligentsia, at least nowadays, have like a compelling narrative that they're trying to sell people, especially since they oftentimes weave in actual problems with our society, like the inability, even stuff as simple as the inability to find friends, the inability to, find people you connect with is something that, we don't pay a lot of attention to, especially as we become a more indigent generation. But it's definitely something that people are struggling with, loneliness and various types of depression. And so I think, when you mix that stuff in with the feeling that or rather with the argument that yes, but you can solve that problem internally with your own individual skill. And also the people external to you, like the government, who are telling you or trying to control your actions, don't know what they're doing. You should be, more confident in your ability to discern right from wrong, just, through your own five senses. It's really easy to see how people fall into that sort of thing, especially when a lot of his ideas are just very generic, like clean your room. And, the stuff about air frying steak just comes later. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it would be a story that maybe some of your viewers, especially ones that like might be kind of on the start of their swing back from being radicalized, could like relate to, because I mean that's how they do, like that's how they get people to start believing in these really horrible bigoted things. Is this like it starts with free speech, and it starts with appealing to people's like loneliness and like their emotions. I mean, when I was getting into him, like there were videos where he cried, and it made me cry because I was like, oh, this guy cares so much about the downtrodden.
Right.
Meanwhile, and later he's
I think that's really, I mean, I often try to understand what people see, especially, young people that they're sort of, these people like Peterson are after, what they're sort of, how they feel about these guys when they see, like, obviously, like someone like, someone who's like more like in the machismo type areas, like an Andrew Tate, it's obvious where the connection is and how he goes after people. But Peterson was always like an enigma to me in terms of like, this is not the usual face of like the conservative manly man or whatever, or even a conservative intellectual in the way he presents himself. And when I first saw him cry the first time, I immediately cackled to myself because it was hilarious. But it is interesting to hear that stuff does connect to people. I mean, obviously it does, but to hear from someone say it's very interesting to me. You felt like just him crying like that showed that like he sort. I mean, obviously you were younger, but you felt at the time that that was a representative of how he felt about the issues.
So I kind of fell into his self-help stuff also because I've lived with depression my whole life, and there are times when I really feel like worthless, and there were some sentiments he had towards people with mental health at the time that I thought he was kind of like fighting for like mental health and people's actual well-being. I thought that he was trying to help people live their life in a way that would actually be good for them. And now it's just so obvious to me that's not what he cares about at all. I mean, he abandoned his psychological practice because he wanted to make money from grifting online. So
yeah.
At the time I thought that he was genuine about like what he wanted to do to help people. Because one of the thing I cried at was he was talking about like people that came to him telling him that he helped them so much with their relationship with their family and stuff, and like how I don't know. At the time, it was very different context to his character. And I was just missing a lot of the red flags, that he was showing even then.
Right. Well, Mark, thank you for calling in and saying, telling us about that. I really appreciate it. We're going to let you go. But
okay.
Have a good one.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Left is best. Thanks so much for taking my call.
Appreciate it. Go ahead, Brandon.
See you guys.
Oh, no, I mean, I think that's just, a lot of people, not to minimize it, but target audience. Target audience is disaffected, alienated, struggling with various types of like internal and external pressure, college age men who are, entranced by a Tony Robbins-esque figure who has testimonials of people he's helped, and a narrative of what's wrong with people's lives that can be more or less solved through picking yourself up by your bootstraps,
Right.
either emotionally or financially. And, ultimately, there's nothing wrong per se with encouraging people to take the steps that they can take in their lives to, improve it. I think that's where, Candace Owens' portrayal of therapy was just cartoonish and wrong. Like, that there's no version of therapy where, people are taught coping mechanisms, are taught, mechanisms for dealing with the things in their lives, besides just being validated about where they're stuck, when in reality, I think that that's closer to what people like Jordan Peterson do. They want us, maybe not the people that they're speaking to feel stuck, but they want society to be stuck in a very static sort of, I remember his argument about why we can't help the poor, but he sort of constructs this dichotomy of where conservatives want to not help the poor for good reasons and liberals want to help the poor, but for the wrong reasons. So it's best if we just all stay stuck in this quagmire and of nothing being different. And, that's just not productive. Ultimately, if you want to clean your room, but his views on politics are just totally, conservative.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Listener, it would have been really funny if the caller was like, yeah, I was watching that video and, when he looked at the camera and was crying about his Twitter account being banned, and I just lost it when he said, we'll see who cancels who.
Yeah, but he's become a much more deranged version of himself, at least publicly facing, since probably the caller was consuming.
Right, but maybe in a couple of years we'll have a caller who's like, I saw the Twitter video.
Yeah, maybe. All right, guys, we're gonna read
It's always good to hear from people like that, because obviously it's good to take from them, what the appeal is, and so we could sort of reverse engineer it and help people who are currently in the position you once were.